Good morning, everybody. If you happen to be listening to this live, I hope you are having an amazing start to your weekend, wherever you might be. I always do my podcasts on the fly now. And I was just catching up with one of my coaches saying, I want to record a podcast this morning. Can you help me come up with a topic? And usually through speaking out and having conversations, I land my ideas. Originally, I was going to talk about Gav and Violet, Gav, my husband, and Violet, my 7-year-old, been away overseas, because I'm getting a lot of questions from people asking me, do you miss them? Now, if you've been in my space for a while, you will know that I absolutely love my time alone. So I have 6 weeks on my own. Last time I had 6 weeks on my own, I happened to break my ankle, which is still on its healing journey. I'm feeling positive about it. But the short answer is no, I don't miss them. I know they're having an amazing time. They have an amazing connection, and I relish this time on my own. So I'm not going to talk about that. I decided to talk about something else. It was a question that was asked on one of my information webinars that I did about my practitioner training, but this is going to be relevant to any of you who are listening. And I realized how embodied the philosophies are that I teach, in terms of, I could answer the question about, do I miss Gav and Violet? And I could answer this question that I'm going to share with you in a minute and break it down to the Eastern philosophies that I use. So, what was the question? The question was about my work. And I really respect the person that asked this question. It was actually really nice to see her pop up on that info session, because she is a coach in the coaching industry that really inspired me. And we touched base at the very start of my journey. So it was really nice to see her pop up and stay present on that Zoom and ask her a question. And she asked it very respectfully. So I was sharing all about my work and really how I help people process the emotions that hold them back, and how I use quite a specific masculine structured process, but how there's a lot of feminine flow and energetics that happen when people actually follow the process. And I was talking about how the body releases, and all the crazy and scary ways that the body can release, and how important it is for practitioners who want to dive into the mind-body connection and the body of emotional work, how important it is for them to educate themselves around how someone is going to respond when they start to release emotions, or when they start to release trauma, which I prefer to say are simply stored emotions that haven't been expressed from past experiences, events, and traumas in our life. So her question was, your work sounds like it's based on catharsis. I understand that this cathartic work can be very fragmenting. What are your thoughts on this? So first of all, I really loved the way that she posed the question, because it was asked from a place of curiosity rather than putting down my work. And we both very much support each other from a distance with our work. And I love it when people ask questions, because I always think that this is an opportunity to educate. So regardless of whether or not you're a practitioner or someone in the general public that follows my work, I hope that this helps you. And I responded by saying, well, it's funny, because I used to have on my social media my title, not that I'm one for titles, but to try and communicate what I did was I called myself a cathartic release therapist. Now, something else I teach is that the way you label yourself or identify yourself can constantly evolve. It can evolve every couple of months. And I use that to just try and describe what I did in 2 words, because again, I find it easier to describe what I do in a story, or if I have a few minutes to write down some paragraphs of what I do. Whenever someone asks me, what do you do? I can't explain it in a title or just a couple of words. But I used to call myself a cathartic release therapist. And I changed it because over the years, I've really recognized that it's not all about catharsis. So catharsis to me, this is not a dictionary meaning, but is really when you feel like things are being pulled out of you. And it's like a purge. Some people who desire this say, I just want to be exercised. Like I can feel this thing inside of me, help me get it out. Now, cathartic responses are definitely something that my clients experience, and it's something that I have experienced. However, it is not necessary to get a positive reaction or to be able to release what's stored in your body, which is why I moved away from it. It definitely attracted some people because they're like, yes, I want to go deep and I want to get this stuff out of me and I want someone who's willing to go there. Now, I had to reflect a lot because not just on this question, but my journey of understanding myself, but also understanding other people. And this is where I draw parallels with loving the fact that my husband and daughter are away for 6 weeks, having heaps of fun overseas. I don't know if I mentioned where they're going, but they're in Nepal. They're trekking in Nepal and then they're heading to Turkey, which is mutual ground for Gav's family from Ireland to meet up. And then he's heading back home to Dublin, to Ireland to catch up with a bit more family. So his hometown. So anyway, travel really well together, which is super cool. And they have a very special connection. I just get the whinges and the crying and the whining when I'm on these trips. So I would rather remove myself from that. But I use the doshas, the Ayurvedic doshas, it's one of the 3 pillars that I teach and drives all of my work with my clients. And when I began to understand myself, I understood that my true nature was made up of a lot of pitta, dosha, a little bit of vata, and a tiny bit of kapha. Now, don't get carried away with these names or trying to research them at the moment. I do teach this work to practitioners and also to the general public, but I will share it with you through my story. So I have this high amount of pitta, which has enabled me to get to where I am and operate the way that I do. I don't expect everyone to operate the way I do. And my pitta loves catharsis. I love seeing what the vacuum cleaner sucks up. I love getting things out. I love the satisfaction of cleaning up mess. And when I'm working with clients, I absolutely love when they get the big responses and when they get the full-on physiological release, which is where I talk about the pees, the poos, sometimes the vomits, or the body just really letting go. And as a result of this response, which can be very cathartic, is that sometimes someone will feel absolutely wiped for a couple of days, a week, and then they break through. But as I got to understand the doshas, so first my work always starts with understanding myself, and that's what I always teach people is understand yourself first, and then you can understand others. As I got to understand the doshas and different people's constitution or makeup, it became very obvious that not everyone was up for catharsis. People didn't desire it, and it would be very fragmenting for some people. So if you're not too sure what I mean by fragmenting, the way I interpreted it is that things start to get a little bit unwound and chaotic, fragmented. You think of when your computer screen gets fragmented and all the pixels are going all over the place. It's really scattered. And you may or may not have experienced this in the past. Other people might call it re-traumatization, when things just come up to the surface and they can no longer function because their emotional cup is so full, it's overflowing, and they just can't see through all of this fog. They can't make rational decisions. When your emotional cup is super full, your intelligence levels go down. I can't get my words right this morning. I'm up early this morning. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the light in the background changing. So although I find it deeply satisfying for myself to feel like I'm getting results, there's also dangers in this that I'll talk about. And I love getting these shifts for clients. I also understand that it's not for everybody. So from a practitioner point of view, I use the doshas. I can look at someone and pretty much work out what their dosha is. I can also very much work out where they're out of balance. So I'm always trying to help people work out, is it physical, emotional, human, energetic, chakra, or dosha imbalance? But that's why I'm a visual person. I like to see people on the screen, even though I might just be seeing their top half. Sometimes when I'm working with my clients, I want to see their whole body and what they look like. I can tell from their history what their true nature is. And I can also see in the present day where they may be out of balance if it's a dosha thing playing out. So I use the doshas for myself to work out how people are going to respond to the deeper emotional work, which is not easy work. And I also use it to work out how people are going to respond in life. If you've ever been in any of my groups, I always speak to the doshas. You see it very clearly play out in people's interaction in the group and their response to doing a live workshop or anything like that. And so rather than projecting the way I thought people could or should get results and what satisfied me, it helped me adapt to the client that was in front of me. So you may find that if you are not a practitioner, yet you have received therapy from people, I usually find that you won't match with people because of these different personality types and these different constitutions. And I think it's a real art as a practitioner to be able to understand your client on a deeper level than just their condition, but to take into account their personality, and for you or me as a practitioner to be able to adjust the way I speak and adjust my expectations around the results someone's going to get. So usually the people who desire or do experience the catharsis and actually enjoy it are usually the ones who also want the quick results. They kind of want to feel the pain. They want to feel like something's been done. If they've been for a massage, they just want someone to get in there more, harder. And sometimes if that tight spot is very emotional, even the pointiest elbows or the biggest needles will not hit the spot. So as I said, it's my pitter. This might be your pitter in you that's like, go in there, just tell me what to do. I want to feel it. I want to be in pain. I want to get this over and done with quick. I don't mind if there's downtime for a couple of days after the first few sessions. I know that I'm going to be better. But of course, if you haven't experienced the grass being greener on the other side, it can be a bit of fear of the unknown. So catharsis has its place. I think it's amazing, but you will read a lot of articles about how catharsis is not the right thing to do, that it re-traumatizes people, or that it's very fragmenting. So I really value this question because, yes, I think everything has its pros and its cons, and it depends who you're taught by. It depends on who you speak to, and it also depends on your own experience. And my desire is for people to really get to know themselves so well that they can make decisions that are good for themselves. And often you've got to empty out your emotional cup first before you start to discover what your true nature is. So I think I've covered what I wanted to cover there around catharsis, but I mentioned that there's some dangers in catharsis. And that is that people get attached to the feeling of a cathartic release or a result. So they think that they haven't got results unless they have something cathartic happen every therapy session, every appointment, whatever it might be. And so they get attached to the pain that's associated with the release. They quite like the discomfort, but they get attached to it. And part of when I coach people is not being attached to the outcome. So when I'm working with someone who loves the catharsis, we're often celebrating it. And I'm also coaching people who might be mildly freaked out by it around educating them before they even have the catharsis. It's educating them about what might happen. And then why is it happening in the body? Why is the body responding this way? And I usually paint a worst case scenario so they're not surprised. But honestly, when your emotions come to the surface, as I said, your intelligence can go down and you forget everything that I've said. So I often support people in those early days, whether it be in a group or one-to-one, and have them express how they're feeling and support them and educate them. Knowledge is power. I think it is very important that you try and understand, not to the nth detail, but you do understand some of the processes and reasons why you might be going through anything in life. So I now pre-frame a lot of my work and I say, look, you might get these big shifts, but generally if we're consistent with it and we've got the right follow-up, is that you might experience these big purges and these big shifts the first few times, and then you may never experience them again. And I want you to know that this does not mean that you're not getting results. Often when people come to see me and their emotional cup is so full, there is so much to empty out in one go. But as you continue to just empty that cup out and fill it up with good stuff and then empty it out and keep it from overflowing, is that you don't need to have the catharsis anymore. So I wanted to speak to that because some of you will be attached to pain, meaning results, catharsis, pees, poos, vomits, whatever the catharsis looks like for you. Maybe it's yelling and screaming and having big emotional outbursts in a session. That catharsis doesn't necessarily mean results. It can in the early days. But I would actually expect that as someone improves, that things aren't so violent. Because with the catharsis, as I mentioned, often there's like a bit of downtime, a couple of days, a few days. Sometimes it can last a week for some people. And I usually get permission to go deep with people and really give them the heads up. I've just lost my train of thought with that. Me going off on my tangents. But I expect you over a period of time to be able to become more aware of the subtleties. So increasing your awareness and your sensitivity, your body awareness, how your mind and your body is reacting or responding to the environment and people around you. You don't need big stuff to hit you in the face. I think this is what I was going to say, is that if every time you had a cathartic response and you were wiped out for 2 days, that's not really great for functioning throughout life, is it? So ideally, I don't want you to be wiped out after every session. And that's why I kind of go top end heavy with my coaching and see people more regularly at the start, and definitely supporting them a lot more in the start. Because if I was to spread sessions out too much and say, see someone that I've never met before once a month, every time their cup would probably fill up again in that month, overflow a little bit, and they'd have that cathartic response. And it does get pretty tiring after a while. So those are the dangers of catharsis and some personalities who are really after it. From a practitioner perspective, I do find that it's up to your practitioner's personality, their dosha, their constitution, whatever makeup they are, as to whether or not they actually feel comfortable with someone having a cathartic response. So it reminds me of when I was doing my acupuncture studies, and that there were a couple of people who didn't have a great response to needles, and they would faint, they would feel sick. And so whenever they were putting the needles in other people, there was so much coddling going on. There was so much, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? Now, if this is me, it's like, just stick the damn needle in, stop talking about it, and I want you to go a little bit harder. So that's why it's really important to feel comfortable and that you are a good match for your practitioner, because a lot of the time, those practitioners, for a period of time until they've had their own experience, will continue to treat the way that they like to be treated. And so what I've learned over the years as a practitioner is to not only just treat the way that I like to be treated, but match that to the client who's ready to receive that level of treatment, and also be able to understand my clients so that I can match the treatment to what is appropriate for them, their nervous system, and their level of emotional regulation. So there are some of my clients that they sit there in awe of the cathartic release, and in the groups, they will see this going on and they'll think, I'm not getting results. And they start comparing themselves and wondering what's wrong with them because they're not getting it. But then that's when I educate them about their constitution and their type, and that we all have different ways of releasing. More is not always better. More can be good for some people, but little bits and less and slightly longer periods of time can be just as effective. So that's back to the question that was asked on one of my info sessions that was catered towards practitioners about how to learn about the mind-body connection without years of study. And the question was, your work sounds like it's based on catharsis. Is that right? I heard that it can be quite fragmenting. What are your thoughts about this? So my answer is yes, it can be fragmenting, but yes, it can also be really helpful. So I hope this helps you. I pulled in about why I'm not upset and why I don't miss my husband and my daughter as they're traveling overseas, why I'm really happy to stay here on my own. And it also feeds into understanding my doshas, various other personality types, and knowing myself really well. So I don't get triggered by people asking me, do I miss them? Why didn't I go? And so on. And these philosophies, the Ayurvedic doshas is one of the key pillars that drives all of my work, whether I'm facilitating it or teaching it to people. And that's how I came to explaining this question to you that I didn't know I was going to answer this morning. So I hope you've enjoyed listening. I do still have some spaces open for the practitioner training, emotional body training. If you're listening to this live, we start on the 5th of May. There is a link in the show notes, theartoflisteningtoyobody.com/emotional-body-training. If you have missed this round, it will be next year, but you will be able to join the wait list so that you are the first to know when the doors open once again. And this is where you are going to be able to watch me go through histories with people and also facilitate a release on the participants in this group. They are all health and wellness practitioners, conventional and alternative. We've got a really cool group of people from all around the world this time round. We've got Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, and Belgium, which is a first. So it's always exciting to see people come together. I met part of the group last week, and I'm looking forward to getting started next week. If you have seen it and it's been on your mind, I encourage you to take the leap if it feels right in your gut. And I hope to see you soon in my free Facebook group. Let me know if you've listened to this podcast. You can also watch them on YouTube. And I hope you have an amazing weekend if you are listening to this live, wherever you are. Bye.